at the same time, it's jamming up our courts, and so these people come to our country and they're allowed to stay until their court case is adjudicated. And, we had the Remain in Mexico policy. We had so many other policies in place to address this specific issue, but Joe Biden is completely unwilling to actually use the tools to reduce this problem.
Random crime and personal attacks. Why now? Radical district attorneys are to play. They don't want to prosecute crime. That's why. So what can we do about all of this? Well, we're joined by someone who knows all about it. I'm talking about Matthew Whitaker. He is the former acting attorney general under President Trump. Welcome back to Centerpoint. Matt, good to see you.
Grant, great to be with you today.
What is it? Why don't they want to prosecute crime? And they really don't. You go to all these liberal cities. You're in New York City, Los Angeles. It seems like they want to let criminals out of jail for anything.
They do, and again, we've seen this before. We saw this happen in the 60s, and what happens, Grant, is you don't enforce the small infractions, and ultimately the people that commit those small infractions get away with it, and so they start committing even worse infractions, and ultimately they're hardened criminals. I've just seen it too often in our nation's city. We need law and order. We need prosecutors that take the cases, the cops, and hardworking members of law enforcement bring to them. Because as you know, if you're a police officer and you're doing your beat and you're doing your job and you arrest somebody and you want to prosecute them and the prosecutor says we don't do that category of offenses, and you see that guy on the street the next day, it's demoralizing, as you can imagine. And I know here in New York City, I'm being recommended to drive in a car a couple blocks just to stay out of harm's way. It's like never seen anything I've ever seen before in my life.
Fighting crime is a simple game. For the most part, they know who the criminals are. They know where the crimes are taking place. Yet for whatever reason, I think it's mostly city councils, liberal city councils, that refuse to let the police do their jobs, correct?
Yeah, it is. And it's not in response to their constituents, because these politicians need to understand that people want safety. Every child should be able to play safely in their front yard. And these policies, to your point, this is not everybody's a criminal. And these criminals congregate in certain places at certain times, to your point. And obviously the good law enforcement, where it's working, you've actually seen crime coming down in places where there's been a increasing police presence and attention to prosecution.
This goes to the border problems as well, because, look, we're seeing a huge flow across the border. And again, it's an administration that doesn't want to enforce the law on the border. Again, another simple game that's not being done.
Yeah, and in addition to the getaways and the people that weren't caught coming across the border, we have a tremendous influx of people who are filing for asylum. In the Trump administration, we took the asylum court, immigration court backlog from about 3 years to about a year and a half. And now Joe Biden has increased that to 6 years. And so we have all these fraudulent asylum claims that are never going to be granted from countries, where, for example, Mexico, where there's really no reason for asylum. And at the same time, it's jamming up our courts. And so these people come to our country and they're allowed to stay until their court case is adjudicated. And, we had the Remain in Mexico policy. We had so many other policies in place to address this specific issue, but Joe Biden is completely unwilling to actually use the tools to reduce this problem.
Well, what you all were doing in the Trump administration is what stopped the flow of immigration in this country, because people knew they couldn't get in. So you can't get in and you can't make an asylum claim, you're not going to come. And so it limited the numbers. Before I let you go, though, I want to ask you, because now a special counsel has been appointed to go after President Trump. The witch hunt continues. Merrick Garland says, this is about being fair. What is this really about? As a former acting attorney general under President Trump, what is this, Matthew Whitaker?
Yeah. Well, nothing's changed. I mean, it's the same investigative team. It's the same agents that are investigating this. It's consolidated, I guess, responsibility under one person, but that person still reports to the attorney general. So really nothing has changed. I think really Merrick Garland did this to give himself some political cover, but it's just exposed how politicized he and others have caused the Department of Justice to become. And, Joe Biden investigating and potentially prosecuting his opponent in the 2024 election does not look good.
I just don't see anybody inside this administration being fair towards President Trump. Do you think this special counsel, any chance that happens?
No, and in fact, I mean, if you look at his record, he's been someone that's been, an aggressive prosecutor, arguably, but too aggressive. Used, novel legal theories against the former Virginia governor, which got thrown out on a 9-0 vote from the Supreme Court of the United States. So this is a guy that I think, has one purpose and was brought in for one reason, and that was, to go after President Donald Trump. And it's not going to work. President Trump will fight through this like he's fought through every one of these other legal situations that have been completely bogus. And it's just too bad that for the last 6 years, Donald Trump has been under constant attack from his own government.
It amazes me. Matthew Whitaker, you're a good friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and I appreciate you coming on the program.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Have a great time with you and your family.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew.